Grybowski is the Director of Education at Patriots Point. He now also wants to become the next Charleston County School Board member to represent the constituents in District 1, East Cooper. I speak exclusively with Keith for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Keith Grybowski, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin, it's an honor to be here.
I appreciate it greatly. You know, you are the Director of Education, obviously, at the iconic Patriots Point. But now you also want to add to your resume a Charleston County School Board member, where you want to represent, obviously, the District 1 area, which I believe is part of Sneed Farm and that back in that area, you know, be over and towards Long Point Road.
Runs from Dunes West.
Right.
As you well know,
it's confusing.
The lines over there between the constituents boards,
right,
the other higher ups to be, but it runs Dunes West pretty much over to Rivertown, right, down 41,
right,
up 17 on both sides of 17 for a little ways. Then it kind of like kicks in and heads over to Hopcaw.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And then it's everything kind of west of Mathis Ferry. I mean, north of Mathis Ferry.
Oh, cool. All those areas that I all know about very well. So tell me,
a lot of neighborhoods.
Yes, indeed, absolutely. So tell me, why now Charleston County School Board for you?
Well, I've been part of the education process here for over 20 years. I started with a nonprofit when I had my electronics company down in Mexico and South America. And then when I was in the process of selling that, I started looking, and my nonprofit had been Patriots Point Science Program for many years. And the director had moved on, and they were looking for something to do. We got a new executive director, who was Mac Burdett, who was the town manager for many years. He came in and he basically looked at me and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm your science education program." He said, "Well, I need an education program." So that was, and I thought it was going to be a 2-3 year gig, as a lot of things that I do. And it's been 12 years.
Wow.
So now I'm 64. I've got a lot of experience, worked with the district, worked with the state. We built a really great education program here, informal education program. And what's happened is the pandemic hit us hard. It stopped us from having access to the students, but we had already started to pivot. We had been doing virtual education for many years. So I thought we were in a really good spot at that point, but it was a tough time. Now we're rebuilding the program again, building it back up now that it seems like things are back to normal. And I think it's my time to move on from this and then take a lot of what I have learned. There's no question now that we've gone to single districts rather than the at-large. I mean, when you look at the at-large, you had 32, 40 names, whatever, and then somehow you pick 9. And now you're accountable to your neighbors. And I've been here 25 years in my district, and I know a lot of my neighbors.
Right.
If you go back when I first started the nonprofit, and we worked with Patriots, went back 2005, 2006. Every 5th grader has been pretty much coming here for years. It used to be mandatory for Charleston County and Georgetown and Berkeley, and then we expanded to the state and started our tentacles reached out, got bigger and bigger and bigger. And, I've had the honor of working with students from every school district. So, now that we've gotten to single districts, I think it made it a little more interesting. And I think it's time to move on to something a little more where I can apply what I've learned here. It's something that'd help our district.
So you talk about your neighbors, and obviously, as you know, the growth of Mount Pleasant is exploding according to a lot of people. So when you look at your district, District 1, what is the pace of growth right down there?
Well, I think we're getting close to being built out. 25 years ago, my neighbors, friends of mine from the old village wouldn't pay the gas money to come out to Dunes West. They didn't want to go north of the connector. And I remember attending town meetings, and they said Boone Hall was going to be the middle of the city at some point. They're correct. As we widen roads, as we see, it only takes 2 to 3 years before traffic comes back. I mean, you look at Clements Ferry and everything's going to be going on up there in Berkeley. It's really going to be interesting. You're going to see a need for schools. So the growth is definitely coming out past the Onondaga area. I mean, that's the next target, because that's the next big chunk of land, because really, like Dunes West, I think we're almost completely built out. I think, Rivertown's almost built out. So, the growth areas for the big, unless you're building and tearing down and building, and now it seems they put more apartment buildings. I think the growth is out west to the Onondaga area. I know there's an awful lot of talk. I've watched your podcast. I mean, there's no question. The constituents board's got their hands set out into trying to, and the district trying to figure out what we're going to do and try to do a better, job of planning for that growth that's going to come, because that's the chunk of land that's left. Charleston County is huge. I mean, I'm amazed. I mean, you go from McClellanville all the way to Edisto. I mean, that's, the superintendent's got one heck of a job trying to, rein all that in.
As you know, Keith, the big talk right now is about the new superintendent search right now in Charleston County Schools. In your mind and in your view from what all your experiences, should the new school board be able to take on that task versus the outgoing school board?
Absolutely. I mean, people like myself are being elected for 4 years. And then the other board, this is a historic time. You got potentially nine new members.
Right.
And with that, I think you're going to see, it's just, I've sat on many boards before. I've never come into a board that is so potentially new to what they're doing. And there's going to be there's a huge learning curve that's going to be going on. My hand's off to the current board now for, doing some of the things that they've done. But, the superintendent is obviously the first order of business, because if you look at what the board's responsibility is, it's to hire a superintendent, because that superintendent works for the board. And then that superintendent has to bring his staff. And, it's going to be interesting because we hold the superintendent accountable. He holds his staff accountable. And when you look at the numbers, he or she's got quite a big staff. So I think that will be the first order of business. And also, everybody's got to learn, Robert's rule of etiquette.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So, it's fascinating. And I think that's, when you ask a lot of people, go, Keith, why now and do this? This is historic, and it's a fascinating time I think you can actually have a chance to do something interesting. So it's a good challenge.
So, Keith, when you look at the enormous amount of staff members there making over $100,000, how does the Charleston County School District justify that when the teachers are not making nearly as much?
Mm-hmm. Very, very good question. I mean, look, I've been involved in the state process for, as a director for over 12 years. And I know how it works. I know how the band systems work. I know the at-will issues that, you get involved in. I look at the salaries. Yeah, it's amazing. Are they justified? Until I'm sitting on that seat, inside, it's really hard to answer that question as to what's justified and what's not justified. It's hard to talk about the qualities of these people until they've had an opportunity to come forth and defend themselves. I mean, that goes to the current superintendent now. I mean, I would like to think that when we do the search for the superintendent, he possibly puts his hat in. But, that's his choice. Our choice is to hire somebody that we as a group, once elected, feel comfortable with.
So if he does, meaning Donald Kennedy, puts his name in the hat for this particular seat as far as permanent superintendent, would you actually vote to keep him on?
I don't know. All I'm telling you is he's got the right to apply.
Sure.
I don't know. I want to see who else. Look, I've always believed, my personal opinion, and I look at it even here where I work. We try to move up from within because they know our system's the best. But I think to grab the respect of teachers and principals, I mean, we're the second largest district in the state. There are a lot of superintendents, an awful lot of superintendents, and you're the second largest in the state. Forget about the pay. It's good pay. But we should be able to get, I think, a superintendent that's had experience as a superintendent, but also, I think, to justify what the teachers and principals are looking for, somebody that was on the ground as a teacher, was a principal, maybe worked in staff and worked their way up, because sometimes it's hard. You look at a lot of government jobs and you really wonder, when they're politically appointees, why were they appointed when they didn't even start from the ground up? I went to a maritime school, and I remember the first time I shipped out after I graduated. And I graduated out as a maritime officer, third mate, and it was actually out of Charleston. So I hop on this Prudential ship, and it's my first 8 to 12 watch at night. The ship pulls away from the dock, and the ABs and the ordinary seamen that were on watch with me, that had worked from the bottom up, they knew I was nervous. Because here I was in charge of a 900-foot ship, and we're, heading out to sea. And, one of the ABs comes up to me, and he kind of nudges me, and he goes, "Don't worry, mate. You're not going to miss Europe. And we got plenty of days to find Europe."
Right.
So he could see that, even though I'd gone to school to be an officer, if I had started from the bottom up, I wouldn't be nervous. But I was nervous being the first time I was put in charge of a ship. So, it goes back to, what are you looking for in the experience of a school board? Yes, I think there are a lot of really great candidates out there. And they're all very passionate people to even want to do this. But, we've got to be asking ourselves, how much experience do we want on that board right now with the problems that we have or challenges that we have? But, going back to the superintendent, it's a tough one. But, it's an open process. There is a process to do it, and everybody's entitled to throw their hats into the ring.
So what current problems do you see right now within District 1?
District 1's an interesting district. Obviously, we've got some of the best test scores going out there. And I like to say, people, when you break down those test scores, what they prove is the students, I don't care what gender you are, what race you are, you can do the work. I see it, I deal with a lot with Title I schools. The majority of the kids I deal with are Title I kids. And I love it when we get them. Now, granted, I get them for a day, maybe 2. And if I'm lucky, we'll get 3 interactions. So, don't think that I think we're the cure-all for education. But I know that when I get them, they can do the work. You just got to give them the right environment, the engaging curriculum, and these kids can do it. So when you look at District 1, why is there this big discrepancy in the test scores? It's a tough subject, and you've got to have it. There's no question that we have a lot of parents in Charleston County that are struggling, hands down. They're struggling, to put food on the table, and they're struggling to raise their kids. And so, we've got to identify them. We've got to give them the support. I'm a big proponent. When I went into the pandemic, we were all about, iPads and all this computer stuff. If you look at the books that we print, they have virtual reality in them. You can scan them; they come to life. The pandemic was an eye-awakening experience, because now I think you have to have some type of technology, but it's not the end all. So what it comes back to is that I like the hard copy books again. So I want to see, we really got to work, because if you look at the test scores, they're bad, but the best test scores are really at the 3rd grade, and then they start dropping off. And they get worse, progressively worse, because kids can't catch up. And I've heard it from a lot of principals that these kids are not coming into school ready. I've got a 9-month-old grandson. Let's clarify that one real quick. I've got a 9-month-old grandson. His mother's incredible. She's got his room full of nothing but books.
Right.
So I go over there. And the books have changed. They're more interactive. They got sounds. They've got all sorts of things. But he is playing books. He's not doing this, with an iPad.
Right.
So, I think we got to do more of that. And that's, we got to help parents. I think that's the biggest challenge is helping parents, finding them, getting them to want to help.
So how many students currently are in District 1 that are in poverty right now, Mr. Keith?
It's a good question. I don't have the number in front of me. I don't want to guess. It's not large, compared to other districts, that's for sure.
And you talk about the pandemic during this particular interview. So what has been the learning loss for most of those kids in District 1?
It affected everybody. It affected everybody across the board. I know what we did in my neighborhoods. I know a lot of the parents teamed up because they could.
Yeah.
Okay. We had some parents that were able not to have to work. I mean, my family's always been a two, wage earner family. So my wife's always worked and I've always worked. But, we had the luxury in some areas to where, they were able to do that. That's not true everywhere. And that goes back with equipment. Is there an equal, distribution of equipment? I don't know. You hear a lot from the other districts. I talk to a lot of the teachers. I work with Carolina Studios, which is downtown, and we see those kids coming. They're very talented kids. They can put down some track beats, and they're good with so you can see it. The kids. If you can give them something engaging, they will do it. So it's really key is trying to take away a lot of that free time and give them something that it's like you want them to understand why they want to come to school.
So, how many kids in your district right now are really ready for this type of school curriculum?
I don't understand your question.
You talked about obviously visiting with principals, and they basically say, "Hey, some of these students are not ready for school." How many of those school students are they?
I think it's a small number. Once again, I don't have, it's kind of a difficult question to say, what curriculum are they ready for? Are they career ready to go on to college? I mean, are they career ready not to go to college? I mean, the Center for Advanced Studies at Wando is phenomenal. I mean, it is, I wish we could put one in every district because they have it down. I work on a program with American Airlines in which we push students straight out of high school. We try to, as long as they can read, as long as they can do math, and they're not afraid of heights. They can go straight out of high school into American and a lot of the airlines programs. And, within a few years, they're sitting there in the captain's seat. And in quite a few years, they're doing pretty well. But those type of schools, the trade schools, I look like when I was growing up, trade schools were a big thing.
Yes.
Got away from it. So you look at that type, that's the kid that doesn't have to go to college or doesn't need to go to college, learns a trade. And so I think they're up to 35 different tracks. I mean, it's just incredible. So, there are kids that want to go to college, have that college experience. I had one son that went to college. I had another son that didn't go to college, so, I look at my one son that did go to college and I look at what he's doing and, it's not like he had to go to college to be a lawyer or go to college to be an attorney. He did have a great, experience at college at Charleston. It was incredible, but what he's doing is really not related to his college, or what he went as an undergrad. So, it's hard. It's a tough question when you say, are they ready to do the curriculum? I think any student can do a curriculum once you have a safe environment, which means good, strong discipline. Once you have a teacher that is, and all of our teachers, you wouldn't be in teaching if you weren't passionate to teach. I mean, so, and once and then you get this curriculum that sparks them to understand why they want to go to school.
Yeah.
Why am I there?
Right. Exactly right. And American Airlines is so good. They flew me out to Charlotte a couple of months ago for work, and I got there in like 30 minutes. That was amazing. So,
look at you.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
I don't drive. I don't know how to drive. So, hey, I got to take a plane. But it's a great airline, by the way. But, okay, you talk about the Center for Advanced Studies at Wando. So how many students are currently enrolled there?
Boy, once again, Quintin, you're asking me specific numbers. I thought that when I last went to their presentation, I think they're running about 1,500 through it, because they're coming from Lucy Beckham, coming from Wando. They're coming, and that's why I think it's one of those models that there's no question it works. What they got one up in out by the airport. I think we need to add some more. I mean, that type of a model, I get more excited about that than anything else that I'm seeing. It works, but I think it's about 1,500. And I saw, I forget what Wanda's attendance was, whether it was 2,500 or close to 3,000. So it's pretty good that they get that many coming over for those extra courses. So.
Yeah. So if you were to put, say, for instance, a CAS in every one of these schools in the district, how much would that increase the student achievement by?
Hard to say.
Mm.
Hard to do. Do I think it's going to raise it? Yes, because I think what you're doing is you're getting, once again, the student to understand why he has to go to school. Look, I am 100. My programs here, we focus on math and three simple things in math: simple math computations, fractions, and ordered pairs. That's all we do. That's the basis of math. And
Yes.
in literacy, we use the stories of World War II, which is a very safe subject.
These days.
And yeah, these days, well, it's just a safe subject.
Yes.
It's an interesting subject, the greatest generation. We had the honor of doing many years of symposiums with, the 75th anniversary, the 70th anniversary. So I had first person participants, and, unfortunately they've reached that age where they're not around as much. But I think the centers would raise up, but I think we can do a lot of other things. We just got to, the literacy and the math is where we got to focus.
Yeah.
We just got to get these kids reading. We got to get them doing the math. Because think about it. It's like STEM. People used to say, well, Keith, you're really not a STEM fan. I said, that's not true. I love STEM. My ship is nothing but STEM. I mean, it's science.
Right.
However, if you can't read and you can't do math, you can't do anything. You can't read your credit card statement, understand why they're charging you. You can't balance your checkbook. You're in problems. And that's what the focus. And the other thing is we got to keep these kids in school. And I don't know what the dropout rate is. I mean, this is one of these interesting states, that I've lived in, that, the kids do drop out at a high rate. And we got to stop that. I mean, the kids they just got to understand why they're going to school. They got to have that hope. Rita Allison, always told me stories about how she would travel around when she was head of the education committee for the House. And she always looked for that one student that had that spark of hope. That's what we need to give all our kids, the spark of hope.
And you mentioned that, but let me ask you, how many District 1 students are currently participating in STEM or in STEAM?
Well, you have, obviously, I think any kid that takes a science class is taking a STEM course. I mean, I think any kid that's or any student that's tracking with any of the wonderful tracks of Wando is doing it. So I think STEM is in every school and every class. Lang obviously focuses on STEM, which is great. The semi-magnet side of it, and when I saw them build that program, it was incredible. But it shows the students that want to do that. But then look at the Performing Arts School. I mean, there's a great magnet school that caters to a type of student that is going towards something that they really enjoy. Right. And so look at its success. And then, I don't know enough about Oceanside to really comment on it.
Yeah, and it's a private school,
Yeah, it's like one of those strange schools, but the concept, which, came out of Florida. Right. Can I argue against it? I mean, some of the parents I know that have sent their kids there have been very pleased. Right. But they're also glad to know that if they have to, they can put their kids in Wando or Lucy Beckham.
Speaking of which, with all that, what is the graduation rate at Lucy Beckham? I pass by there all the time to get to work and everything. So what is that graduation rate right now there?
Well, this is their first graduating class, so we'll see.
Now, let me ask you this. How many District 1 students have actually graduated on time?
I don't know that. I would say it's pretty high. They're all good questions, Quintin. But when you kind of like look at it, we're talking about, as I like to say, and this is the district's own numbers. When they showed the performances going up during the years when we were building our programs, in 2005, 2006, 2007, up to 2012, and then you see something happen, and you're going like, what the heck happened? But I wasn't I wasn't sitting in the hot seat.
Right.
And then it went down. So you try to figure out what actually happened. I don't think you're ever going to see a quick turnaround, no matter, who you put on the board,
Right.
what superintendent you have. It's going to take time, to identify the problems. But I think we know what we have to put our resources to, and that's just helping these struggling parents be parents. And it's not their fault. I mean, they're working hard, but we've got to change the attitude of students.
Let me quickly get to it, because I'm sure it's doing with giving that notice that I'm running out of time. But I know that the board right now is reportedly proposing to basically delegate the majority of its policy decisions to the superintendent. What, in your mind, as far as best practices, can actually come out of all of this?
The governor's policy and process, I've seen it throughout years of being in the corporate world. The guardrails and all this, it's still, remember, you get a new board in, the new board can look at what's been done, and the new board can make its decision. Title 59 is very clear, right, as to what the board can and cannot do. So I got a feeling what's going to happen is people are going to look at where we are, see what's been done, and I think you'll be surprised, or maybe I'll be surprised, because I'm assuming I'm getting elected. So I think we'll all be surprised to see what this new board does, and by looking at what the old board's already done. And we're not in that seat, so it's really hard to question those people, because they've got a lot more information than we have on the outside.
Sure, absolutely. And obviously, talking about problems, let me ask you this. What is your definition of critical race theory?
Good. Well, as a lawyer, as a criminal lawyer, I have, history is history, and we need to teach history. I know what the standards say and what we're supposed to be teaching in the standards. I think critical race theory is a distraction. I just want to teach kids how to read, how to do math, and I want them to respect everybody. End of story. Respect everybody. So, that's the soft skill we should be talking. So when you start talking about some of these racial issues, we have a long history of what we've done in getting as far as we are. So it's tough for me to sit there and define what critical race is, because it's not in our standards. It's not defined in our standards. It's not defined in any of our curriculums. So if it's not really there, you will get some examples of people will say this is a critical race theory as it's being taught. You look at some of the curriculums we're supposed to be developing curriculums specifically for South Carolina, teaching them how to read, teaching them how to do math. That's it. You start bringing in a lot of these other, issues like critical race theoretically, and that's where parents have to be vigilant. You have to let the parents know what their students are being taught, and they have to be able to opt in, opt out. But we also got to trust our teachers. Remember, Quintin, one of the things you've got is you've got a new group of teachers, and then you've got teachers that have been doing very well, and their curriculums have been very well, like in Mount Pleasant. District 1, whatever they've been doing for the last years have been good. And suddenly we throw a new curriculum at them, and then, it's not good. That's not good. But we could talk for hours on curriculums. Is it my job? My job is to hire a superintendent, hold them accountable, let them explain to me what they're doing and what they're not doing. Parents will show me examples of what they think critical race is. Do I see bad questions? Yes, I see bad questions all the time. But I still go back to the theory. It's very simple, and that's why I know we've run out of time. But World War II, we had a common enemy. The United States came together. Did we have segregation? Yes, we had a lot of segregation within our military. Did we correct it eventually? Yes, we eventually grew as a nation and we corrected. Did we defeat the enemy? We defeated the enemy. So that's all, that's what we need to be focusing on. I'd rather see that rather than a lot of these other issues that you hear about.
So then, Keith, why did you accept the endorsement of Moms for Liberty?
Moms for Liberty, look, I took my theory on endorsements was I answered every survey. I'm talking to you. I went to a lot of forums. Why? Because it's the hardest thing is to get out and talk to people and get them to know you. Moms for Liberty are strong parental rights. I am a strong believer in parental rights. Do I believe in everything that people may, associate with them? That's their opinions. I got their endorsement. I endorse their belief on parental rights. It's like I got the Coalition for Kids endorsement out of nowhere. It came at the very end. I was as surprised as everybody else was. But I believe in charter schools. Montessori is a great system. James Island is a total success. So, for that part of it, I do believe, that's a parental choice issue again. If you can get enough parents together to pull off a charter school, God bless you. Because I've seen it where you can't. And I've seen it where you can't. James Island, you can't talk about a better school. It's a great school. It worked.
Now, let me ask you this. Let's talk about the Coalition for Kids. So let me ask you, when did you meet with the group about your endorsement that they gave you?
I talked to, I've talked to people. I filed, the middle of April, and, didn't even know what I was doing because I deal with superintendents and principals. I didn't even know what the board did. I've learned over the last couple of years. So I talked to nearly everybody in April and May. And then suddenly endorsements start flying. Always remember, endorsements, theoretically, the way it should work is somebody asks you to talk about what is their concern to their members. You give them the answers. Okay? This is the problem with a lot of endorsements, is it's decided by a small select few, yet a lot of members don't even hear what all the candidates had to say about it. So you're taking what the leaders of that group believe that falls in line with what your group believes. It's a small group. I mean, Charleston's got 26,000 voters in my district.
Right.
So, Moms for Liberty is one group. The Coalition is, another group. The Post and Courier represents, they have a theory. The city paper's got a theory. The Teachers Association's got a theory. If you really want to look at what a candidate, go, get the freaking voters to vet everybody. Google you. Go to the websites. Go to the, League of Women Voters. They put up everybody's questions so you can read them. And nobody goes to these forums. We had all sorts of forums where you could have talked to people, could have talked to the candidates. There's so much information out there. But when you talk about endorsements, always remember, yes, you get endorsed. That doesn't mean you endorse everybody on everything. It's virtually impossible. There's just no way a candidate can sit there with multiple endorsements and agree with everything that's being said. I have no clue sometimes. So Moms for Liberty is a very strong parental rights group, and I believe in them, in that theory. The coalition is a strong group that wants to see, more, look at charter schools. That's parental choice to me.
Well, let me ask you this, Keith. How could you empower great teachers and principals within the Charleston County School District and ensure excellent public schools when this group, the Coalition for Kids, is obviously, in so many people's mind, allegedly trying to privatize Charleston area public schools?
Great question, Quintin. And you said it you said the key words within your own question, in other people's minds. Like I have always said with, when you talked about critical race and all that, show me discrimination. Show me examples of discrimination and I will attack it in a heartbeat. Show me segregation. I will attack it in a heartbeat. Show me inequities. I will attack it in a heartbeat. Show me facts. Don't make allegations without showing me facts. And I hear a lot of allegations about a lot of things and I go, show me. Show me the money, baby. Wait until I get into the procurement and I look at that $1 billion budget that we got all that money. Does anybody talk about the $1 billion? No, they want to talk about, all these little dark money is a funny thing. Any donation you get is pretty much dark money. I mean, you know where the source is when you get the money. So,
do you know the source for the Coalition for Kids money?
I have no clue. Do I think it's my job to understand where the money comes from? No. Am I beholden to what they're going to tell me? No. I am my own person. And if you look at what I write, I have no problem answering my questions. You go to my blogs, you see what I write. I write on all subjects. I will answer any question. It's like the other day, the Post and Courier wrote something about me and executive sessions. They didn't say the whole story. In my experience, the way it's legal. It's a legal issue. There are only so many reasons you can go into executive session. What I was trying to say is that when you go into executive session, you need to announce why you're going into executive session, and you do it at the end of the meeting so that the public has the opportunity, if they want to sit around and wait, they can wait, and then whatever happens in executive session, they can hear if something happened in executive session. You don't do it at the beginning of the meeting, but you always announce why within the law, because executive session is controlled by what the law allows. You always announce why you're going into executive session, and at the end, when you come out, you explain what happened in executive session to what you can. Obviously, if you got contractual issues, you're not going to be giving that much information. Right. But you do it at the end so that the public's not sitting around waiting for something that has nothing, that involves them.
And to make it clear, Mr. Keith, are there any examples of critical race theory taught in Charleston County schools?
Have I seen bad questions that can be interpreted as critical race? Yes, I've seen bad questions. But remember.
Yes, sir.
Critical race is not defined in any of our standards, and it's not defined in any curriculum. So, when somebody says it, you're going based upon somebody's opinion. Do I see bad questions written? Look, I saw the Republican, survey. There were some pretty bad questions, but they gave me the opportunity to explain my answers. So I answered the questions.
So with all of this race is supposed to be nonpartisan, so why do you all get endorsed? Why do you all pick up these endorsements from these controversial groups and from some of these political parties?
Fair question. Should people be allowed to endorse people? I asked that myself. Could you ask people not to endorse everybody? It just seems that when somebody endorsed, it opened up the can of worms, and everybody wants to endorse. In a nonpartisan act, you're right. What does an endorsement really mean? If you are truly nonpartisan, an endorsement means nothing because you are for everyone. All right. So I am there for all 9 districts. I'm one vote of 9. So people can come to me with all their problems, and I've got to look out for the best interests of the students in all the county. But I've also got to be accountable to my constituents in my district because they elected me. So transparency is huge. And you need to you can hold me accountable for anything I've written, anything that you and I have discussed. That's perfect. That's what it's supposed to be about. So you're right. Nonpartisan, I kind of wish there weren't any endorsements. Do you get them? It's like signs. I wish we didn't put signs up. Do I have signs up? Yes, I have signs up. Why? It just seems like it's the one way you want people to get your name out.
Chief Grybowski, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin, it's been a pleasure. I knew we were going to have fun discussing this. Like I said, I want the voters to vet people. I want them to go to the websites. I want them really to think. And this is the type of conversation. I hope a lot of people watch this.